Remember, coupon code PP expires Friday. Join or pay a higher price later when you finally join and get that lifetime access. The Twitter Files drama gets even worse and even creepier. Now, look, I believe and I hope that many of you realize I am not Mr. Tinfoil Hat. I'm gonna run to every single conspiracy that pops up, but this one just keeps getting weirder and weirder, and I have a belief that when there's smoke, there's fire, okay? When there's a suspicion that something is going on, there's probably something going on to some degree. And what you have to remember is, in case you haven't watched my last video on the Twitter Files, let me give you a very, very quick synopsis. Politicians, especially Democrats, since they provided over 99%, 97 to 99% of donations to Twitter, which gave them a lot of access to contacts at Twitter, were in the past, and who knows, maybe at other platforms still are able to today, request that certain Twitter posts be removed, potentially from their competitors, right? And in my last Twitter video about the Twitter Files, I talked about how disgusting this was and how if I could just find out that Gavin Newsom potentially did this to me when I ran for governor in California, and all of a sudden my posts were getting censored and deleted for nonsense, boy, oh boy, would I have had a better chance running against him, because it would have shown how corrupt the system is and how disgusting the system is. Now, that's what we talked about last time, but we also talked about how weird it was that the FBI had been investigating and had knowledge into this Hunter Biden laptop for potentially up to 2 years. And then just conveniently before the New York Post releases their story in October of 2020, just weeks before the election, the FBI just happens to conveniently send multiple warnings to Twitter that, hey, there could be Russian disinformation coming, there could be hack and leak attacks where stuff gets hacked and then it gets leaked. And that's why essentially immediately when the Hunter Biden laptop story dropped, which the FBI knew when it was going to drop since they were surveilling Rudy Giuliani's emails. They knew when the story was going to post so they could prep Twitter, hey, hack and leaks coming. And then sure enough, the story drops. And what does Twitter do? Twitter censors the story along with many other social media platforms. They censor the story without even the knowledge of Jack Dorsey going behind his back or not letting him know about this censorship, despite the calls from even Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna suggesting, hey, like, you have to be careful here. This is a free speech violation. And what does Twitter do? They say, oh no, the Hunter Biden laptop information or material was hacked. Even though here's an article from The Hill, which actually leans left, saying there was no evidence that the New York Post's Hunter Biden story was hacked. Yet, what did Twitter do? They assumed Russians or hackers were behind it. Yet, what's really interesting is this guy right here, James Baker, worked for the FBI, whom I just kind of gave you a little background on how they like to play the game. Apparently, okay, allegedly, again, where there's smoke, there's fire, and I don't want to say that the entire organization has problems. I don't like to do that. I think sometimes you just have some people, potentially like this guy, that do things wrong, and that does not mean the entire organization is bad. I want to be very clear with that. I think that in fairness, we should all agree with that. Doesn't mean that everyone's bad. Maybe there are some other bad apples too. But anyway, this guy, what's interesting about him is this is a photo of him when he worked for the FBI. And he worked for the FBI during the Alpha Bank drama, working for the Hillary Clinton campaign, trying to find any or potentially fabricate any potential evidence that Donald Trump was working and colluding with the Russians. At the time, this individual worked with the FBI. After all of that, he ended up getting a job at none other than Twitter. And this was the individual who was responsible in large part for censoring the Hunter Biden story in 2020. In fact, here's the Hill article. There's also James Baker, the controversial former FBI general counsel involved in the Bureau's Russia collusion investigation. He left the FBI and became Twitter's deputy general counsel. Some Twitter executives expressed unease with censoring the story, including former global communications individual, or vice president, I should say, Brandon Borman, who asked, "Can we truthfully claim this is part of the policy?" And then Baker jumped in to support censorship and said it's reasonable to assume that they may have hacked and that caution is warranted. Again, even though there was no evidence of any kind of hacking. Well, bombshell gets released today. Now, Zero Hedge put a phenomenal piece together on this. I'm just going to give you the bottom lines on this. It turns out that the person who was vetting the release of all the Twitter files, this stuff, which Matt has been posting the Twitter files on Twitter, obviously. The person who was vetting the release of the Hunter Biden files, the Twitter files, was none other than James Baker, unbeknownst to Mr. Musk. And so what did Mr. Musk do today? In light of concerns about Baker's possible role in the suppression of information important to public dialogue, he was fired from Twitter today. Now, Elon Musk wrote that he was exited from Twitter. There was a hilarious reply to one of my comments on this tweet thread. Somebody wrote, "No, Kevin, he wasn't fired. He was promoted to customer." Okay, I laughed about it. I thought it was great. Anyway, so this was interesting because apparently Elon Musk talked to Jim, and you know, when Baker was asked to explain himself, Elon Musk replied, yes, that he had talked to Baker, but his explanation was unconvincing. And this reply, I'm assuming, and that's why I wrote joke next to it, I just thought was funny. Somebody replies, his explanation was, "I still work for the FBI." Elon Musk adds clarity that he only discovered that Baker actually was involved in the Twitter files vetting on Sunday, which, if you put this together, you could see why this is so weird. Maybe it doesn't seem so weird just yet, but if you put it together, you could kind of see the string here. If in 2016 you're anti-Trump, right? You're working, trying to basically find Russia, or working the Russian collusion angle. Okay, you're clearly anti-Trump, right? Then in 2020, you're censoring the Biden story under quote-unquote hacked materials policies, even though there was no evidence that the materials were hacked. And now all of a sudden, here in 2022, you're in charge of the release of the Twitter files, which could actually show how much censoring you were personally doing. You can see how that would be a little weird, right? And the fact that the FBI was heavily involved here, potentially here, and has an interest in not being involved here. In fact, what I think is really interesting, and this is me just going a little further here, is the first batch of the Twitter files didn't actually show any kind of evidence in the Twitter files, even though we're expecting this, because this is what has been reported many times before. You could watch my last videos to see some more details on this. The first batch of the Twitter files didn't actually show any kind of government involvement, but we're wondering now, did Jim Baker selectively protect the FBI, removing that information and any incriminating information for himself, and then turned over the Twitter files, right? So it's kind of like the revealing of all the censorship was being censored. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like how many more people like this are still at Twitter? That's the big question now. And look, I always want to say, I am not Mr. Tinfoil Hat. I try to be very, very reasonable. But I'll tell you, when there's smoke, there's fire, and this seems very, very sussy. And I feel personally involved in this because in 2020, the same year all of this stuff was brewing like crazy, I had my gubernatorial campaign censored. It's bad, it's wrong, it should not happen, it's disgusting. And if you watched my last video, a lot of you agreed with my solution. The solution was very, very simple. Anyone who requests that a post be taken down should have that request made public. Anybody who gets moderation made or whatever on their post, that moderation should also be public. So in other words, you should almost have like a blockchain style history of here, all of the requests being made, all of the reports being made against the post. Like, let's say this is a post, okay? This is my son Jack's prediction of the stock market. I'm not exactly sure if you hold it this way or this way, but either way, it ends up, which I'm very happy about that. I did use it as a coffee coaster, which he was very upset by, which we also talked about in my course member live stream this morning. Clearly, we've got really high quality information in the course member live stream for you, and this is why you gotta be part of the course member live streams. Use that coupon code expiring on Friday. It's coupon code PP. Okay, expires Friday. It's the day I go ring the stock exchange bell. Anyway, I believe that there should be a log where basically if you click on a post, imagine this is a Twitter post, it should say, here's a list of all of the time-ordered reports and complaints filed against it. So if I could see Gavin Newsom, Gavin Newsom, Gavin Newsom, Gavin Newsom, at least I could transparently see that he's continuing to be the scumbag that he is. And then on the other side, it should say, no action, no action, no action, no action, right? Or if there was action taken, it should be transparent. I believe that is the best thing to come out of this, or at least that's the best thing we could hope for out of this. I don't believe that what we really need is anything more at this point than utter transparency. I think transparency is extremely important. Who knows? We'll see what other drama comes out of the Twitter files. I will definitely be looking. And so I encourage you to subscribe to the channel, share the video if you found it helpful, and of course check out the programs on building your wealth. Thank you so much, and good luck. We'll see you in the next one.